52 years ago today, Nick and I got married at the Norwood Presbyterian Church in Norwood, Ohio. He was from Cleveland, I was from Cincinnati. We met at Ohio University the first week. He was a sophomore. He transferred there from Baldwin Wallace. I was a freshman. I was so much younger. We met playing touch football. The first week, I thought he was cute. His hair was longer than mine, cut a little bit like a beetle. There's much more to the story, but I'll let that come another time. I'm moving this along because I've shot 2 other videos today. The technology messed up. It could never have been me. But here we are, 54 years later since we met, 52 years after being married. More in love today than we were then. Yes, it's a love story. Has it always been a love story? Yes. Have we argued? Have I stormed off a couple of times? Yes. We lived in a trailer right after we got married. It was an abandoned one at Ohio University on a hillside in the Conestoga Trailer Park. Nick's mother loaned us the money to buy it, and I don't know what I was mad at. Who knew? But I stormed out of the house and got into our fine old Bel Air with no air conditioning and was going to run away, maybe to town. Who knew? But I pulled out of the parking area where we parked over the hill, and I saw these huge storm clouds. And I turned around and went back in and said, I can't run away. It's going to storm. Yep, that would be me. Our wedding was at, as I said, the Norwood Presbyterian Church. It was my mother's perfect wedding. Nick and I have said we should have eloped. There's always underlying stories, storyboards, and storylines throughout life. Mine was at that time that my mother was severely depressed and had been in the psychiatric ward under suicide watch. She wanted to make my wedding dress. I wanted to go look at wedding dresses and try them on because it would be fun. I thought that seemed to be part of the process, but I didn't want to upset the apple cart. So she made my wedding dress and the 4 bridesmaids' dresses. And they were beautiful. They were just what my mother would have wanted. God love her. In the pictures from our wedding, you can see that she looked like a ghost. She was there, but wasn't there. It was a nice wedding. It wasn't us. But at that time, I still was whoever people wanted me to be. If we had $100, we were lucky to go to Florida. We were going to stay at Nick's brother's apartment, but we had to take his 100-pound Labrador dog, Cleo. Hairy beast. Shed like crazy. We ate our bologna sandwiches with a layer of maybe mayonnaise and dog hair. We were there just for a few days, went to Key Biscayne, just drove around, which is what we've done. I do remember pulling over the line into Florida and seeing the first rest area and seeing a sign that said free orange juice. I thought, oh gosh, I've died and gone to heaven. Something's free and we can get it, orange juice. They should have paid us more than free orange juice because the love bugs were out then too. That's what they called them. And if you opened your mouth to talk or inhaled or opened your eyes, you got love bugs in them. We dreaded going back because we had to go back to school, back to Athens, back to our trailer, which I had made a sofa for. I scrubbed it all out, gone to a McAlpin's moonlight sale, got a couple carpet remnants, made some curtains. There we were. We had our friends Becky and Toby over to play hearts sometimes. Nick worked at a pizza joint and made little money, but we were really poor, but we didn't know we were poor. We just knew we didn't have any money. And throughout our early years of marriage, we never had money. I mean, when our kids were younger, we lived paycheck to paycheck. I quit school before graduation, and I had arranged with them that I could finish it up at UC or a correspondence course. They didn't have online courses. But after my being married a year, we went to Cleveland and I saw my baby niece, Debbie. Thought she was cute and told Nick I wanted one. And I got pregnant. And so we left Athens. We'd been there almost 4 years. And it was time to go back to the real world because Athens was not like living in the world. We were in our own little microcosm. And we saw Nixon resign, Spiro Agnew. I had a t-shirt that had Spiro Agnew's face on it just because it was a line drawing and his face was so funny. Moving ahead, we ended up living with my parents for a couple months while Nick got a job, and then we got an apartment and another apartment and bought our first house for $20,500. Still didn't have money, but had a baby and another one. Ended up with 4 children. Sold our first house, made a little money off of that, bought our second house, which was a tri-level and a new one. It was about 30 miles from Cincinnati, and my mom thought we had moved to Michigan. If she called us, it was long distance. If I called in, it wasn't. So we had codes with everybody. 1 ring meant call so-and-so. Have Nick and I ever argued? Yes. Actually, it's usually not been an argument. It's me being ticked about something because Nick's not an arguer. I mean, he got ticked at me mad sometimes and we'd get quiet. And that's what our arguments were. They weren't loud. They were more like the quiet kind. And then, don't talk for a few minutes and then look at each other and sort of laugh and think, you idiot, and carry on. I think that most of our arguments were probably about raising kids. It's just things, and not huge things, just we both wanted the same, to raise them the same way. Wanted them to be loved, but disciplined, grateful, kind. We wanted them to learn that the world was bigger than Mason, Ohio, or Landon, Ohio, and that they had the potential to do anything. But when they were little, I watched them a lot. Nick took them on hikes in the woods. We took them camping because we had no money, and we thought that would be great fun. And they had fun, but it was a lot of work. And Nick and I needed a vacation from the vacation. We'd go down to the mountains and the Smokies and go on bear rides, or looking for bear hunts, deer, up in Cades Cove, swim in the river. In the evenings, we'd go down to Gatlinburg sometimes, and we'd go to Fanny Farkle's, which was an arcade. And they grilled sausages and onions and peppers right in the front on the sidewalk, so you could smell them. And I can still smell them if I even mention it. And sometimes when I'm grilling out, I'll smell a fried onion, the onion, grilled onion or pepper, and I think about that. We eventually got to the point we rented a friend of his friend Nick's cabin. He worked at Avon. And the kids got older. And eventually the boys had sports. And you don't think about it, but those years do go by quickly. One time, this was after the boys couldn't come anymore, Nick and Andrea and Rachel and I were on the river. I was on a raft and they were playing around the little rapids and the shallows, and the sunbeams were coming down, the rays were coming through the trees, and I was looking up thinking, life doesn't get better than this. It's so wonderful when you are enveloped by a loving memory or thought. Nick has been my champion. He's believed in me before I believed in myself. I've believed in him before he believed in himself. And we have edged each other along through the hardships and the good. When he worked at Avon, he was the one they had on projects that were big, that were important, and needed solutions. Because Nick doesn't say die. He's methodical. He reads directions. Whereas I like to see what I can do by my own wiles. And if necessary, I will read the directions. But I have been very good with my hands, always. So I am called in for projects that involved dexterity. But at work, at Avon, Nick was really well respected, and at his retirement party, I was so proud of him. You could just tell people not only respected him, but they loved him because he was a good person. He was good to work for, very even-keeled, just like me. Actually, I was even-keeled when I worked. But Nick, he's been a good dad, and he didn't have a role model. His dad died when he was 6, drank himself into oblivion, and Nick only remembers fights. I, on the other hand, had loving parents. Sometimes, Nick picked this up for me. Growing up, I never could quite please them enough. I was always a people pleaser. I always took everybody else's problems as my own and thought that I was the one messing up. And even when I did something that was really good and I was proud of it, my dad would say, "Yeah, it's good, but you could do this and it would be better," blah, 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 over and over. And sometimes all you want to hear is that was well done. But then, transversely, that made me achieve and work harder, I suppose. It's something I had to get over, thinking everything's my fault. I still sometimes do. Nick doesn't. He's had my back, I've had his back. Some of the hardest times were, we had 4 kids, and all over the educational spectrum. Some school was easy, some wasn't as easy. Our youngest daughter had some hard times with anxiety and depression and different things, and this went on for years. Yes, we've been blessed. We've been blessed by all 4 children, grown-ups all, but the path wasn't always easy. But we never gave up. And the funny thing is, all of our 4 kids are so supportive to us. But our youngest, who gave us some fits, used to say when I'd be mad at her for some, really justified. And she'd say, "Well, I'm going to be the one taking care of you when you're older." And we're like, "Yeah, that's going to happen." Well, darned it. She is Johnny on the spot here. Everyone is. They all have their different roles. But Rachel lives 10 minutes away. She goes to the hospital with the ambulance with me when Nick goes in the ambulance. She's hauled my butt, my happy ass, down to the hospital when I've fallen. She grocery shops for us sometimes. When I've had surgery, she's come and cleaned the house. Each of my children is special to me in different ways. And my grandchildren. We have 6 grandchildren. And part of our blessing is seeing that our children have parented their children to be loving, responsible, wonderful people. Still growing, but we see many of the things that they do that we did. Vacations, rides. My one granddaughter who lives in South Carolina, still when she comes up, because I used to do this when she was down by us, we'd go for rides in the country. She loved that. That was us. Nick and I are not city people. Although we used to go to New York to see plays. This is when I was in real estate, mostly. I knew every play on Broadway and off-Broadway and have you. The hardest time was, I used to tell Nick he needed to get a colonoscopy. His brother had had colon cancer. I'd had colonoscopies for years because I had ulcerative colitis because I was stressed so much when in high school. But finally he got one, and I remember being at the doctor, and he came in and he said, there's no worry at all, but I need Nick to go to the hospital to have him finish removing this polyp. It's too big. The blood drained straight from my head down. And I thought, oh no, cancer. And the doctor said, no, it's going to be fine. Don't worry about it. So we went to the hospital and they took it out. And so he had said it would be fine. So a few days later, Nick dropped by their office on the way to work to get the results. He called and said it was cancer. Bottom dropped out. I said, I'll meet you. I'll come over, get you. We'll go to dinner at Frisch's. I did. I told him I'd make sure everything was okay. I'd get the doctors. He didn't have to worry about any of that. So I did. Called the insurance, got him into the Cleveland Clinic, went up there, got their opinion. The doctor said, although they said they got it all, I would get surgery, to get it removed. If it were me, we had already figured that out. Got back, found out he's not covered at the Cleveland Clinic. Had to argue with that to not have to pay. But there were records of my talking to them. I knew who I would talk to. I wrote it down, when and what. So I found wonderful doctors in Cincinnati. Dr. Rafferty, Janice Rafferty. They did the surgery. My daughters were with me. A couple hours went by, nothing. Another hour, they called me and said it went fine, but when they reattached the intestines, they tested it, or actually they didn't say that at that time, no. They said he was fine, go to recovery soon. So 2-3 hours later, nothing. Finally, they called me in and said, when they sewed the intestines together and tested it, there was a leak. So they had to go in and she removed a bit more. A couple lymph nodes even. So I stayed with Nick the first couple of nights. I had to go get a shower. I wanted to talk to the doctor. Of course she came when I wasn't there. And she told Nick that it was in a lymph node. I immediately went back. The next day she came in. I didn't leave till Nick did. She said that, yeah, it was in a lymph node. I said, is that stage 2? She says, no, that's stage 3. So Nick entered, and I entered with him, chemo and radiation world. Got 2 female doctors, wonderful, excellent doctors. 20 years later, Nick is here. That was hard. I've had my health issues that he's gone through with me. You know of them, I've mentioned them. Breast cancer. I've issues since I was in my 40s. Today, even my eyesight's worse than it was yesterday. I'm having a really hard time reading close up. Losing color. Shoulder surgery, rotator cuff. 2 hips and 2 knees replaced. Heart stuff. An 8-hour surgery for that. Nick was there. He wasn't there on all those surgeries. He was until the Parkinson's got so bad that he can't come. He can't sit in a hospital. But he's with me in spirit. And my kids take up the slack. And Rachel's funny. She's the one who can sit with me in there and, listen to me and talk and keeping me company. And, she doesn't care what kind of clothes, if I'm dressed, undressed, or whatever. She'll make sure those nurses and doctors are doing what they're supposed to. She's not afraid to ask. Andrea, on the other hand, she hates hospitals. But she will drive us there, and she will work from a waiting room or whatever, and she will talk to the doctor at the end, and she's very smart. And she can tell me if she thinks the doctor's an asshole or what, which she has before. And they each have their roles. And it was funny, after my my hip replacement, I was on, I don't know what kind of drug it was, but it was marvelous. I'd never had a drug like that. I was so peaceful, so chill. I didn't want that to end. But then Rachel said when I woke up from the operation, I was bawling. And she called Andrea and said, Mom's, crying hysterically. And Andrea's comment was like, she's going to be a real nut job for a while. So they know the drill. Thank goodness that they can do that. But Nick doesn't have to be there. I go to all Nick's doctor's appointments. He doesn't go to mine. But he needs me to listen because I am a medical geek. I read that whole Better Homes and Gardens medical guide in my 20s. I had every illness that you could get because all the symptoms were the same. But through this all, Nick, with his dry sense of humor, he knows I enjoy getting to know different people and conversing and listening. And he said he's seen the world through my eyes. I take him places that he's not been, just emotionally and playfully, and he values that. It's so funny because our kids know that I can be really goofy and silly. Nick will be very, very quiet, and all of a sudden he'll come in with a zinger, then everybody's rolling on the floor, and usually at my expense, which I'm cracking up too because they're so good, so funny. But we're just that kind of a team. I mean, our kids know we're a package deal. Nick has a very difficult time these days going anywhere or feeling good for over a half an hour. Kids know that. They deal with it. I don't know what's in their heads, and I know it's hard for them. And sometimes, I try to keep some major stuff to myself. There are times when I've mentioned to them, our world has gotten so small. And it's just the nature of the beast. But my kids know that we love each other a whole bunch. And I think we've been a good example for a marriage. I hope so. We do goofy things, and I'm sure they roll their eyes at us. I know they do. And there are times when both Nick and I can go to the place where we can get really sad about where we are in life, just what's happened, and the time, and the realization that at some point this love story is going to take a different form. And one of us could be here and the other one not. And neither of us can imagine life that way. But that's life also, isn't it? And you have to deal with that too. But even within our own little world, we go for our vulture rides now. We've gone for deer rides. We do back scratches every day. We have our little things that we do and enjoy. But we're also not afraid to say how hard it is and how hard it can be for both of us. But through it all, we have been blessed. My kids' names are, the oldest is Ben, then Christopher, Chris, Andrea, and Rachel. 6 grandchildren, I'll leave their names out. But we have been so blessed with love. There are times when I have wondered if I was a good mother. I don't think Nick wonders if he was a good dad. He looks at it, he did the best he could. Okay. But that's just me, my little bits of insecurities and wanting to know that my purpose, which they are the greatest joys of our lives, our biggest successes. I'd give up everything else I've ever done for the experience of raising them. They continue to enrich my life with different viewpoints and experiences and love. And they love their dad. I think they love their parents. And for all those things we celebrate today. Nick's in there laying down. I asked if he wanted to do a video today. He wasn't feeling up to it. He did say hello to you. I'll try to attach that at the end, but I just wanted to share our little love story. Even when days when I can use the F-bomb and see the world as a beastly place and this is who I am in my heart. It's more important to me than anything. Politically, experience, adventure-wise, this has been the greatest adventure of all. I'm grateful for that. Thanks.